Welcome to uzosfoodlabs. We're baking today. I know that when people think about baking cakes, they think you have to have a lot of fancy equipment and that it's something that's really specialized. Perhaps if you're decorating a cake, but this is good old-fashioned comfort baking. We're going to be making a sweet potato pound cake. Pound cakes are great because they're denser than lighter sponges. They're very good if you're going to be having them with, let's say, tea or coffee or with ice cream because they have a bit more body. Sweet potatoes because why not? It's just being a little bit adventurous with your cooking. And it's very easy to put together. You won't need a stand mixer or a hand mixer. And the ingredients are very easy to find. The key is, for the sweet potato, you need to wash it. You need to cut it into chunks after taking the peel off. You need to boil it. And then when it's really soft, you need to mash it so that you have mashed potato consistency. And that's going to go into our cake. To your mixer, whether it's a stand mixer or a hand mixer, you add your unsalted butter. Usually when you're baking, you will add unsalted butter just because, if you're baking desserts anyway, you don't want to add too much salt and then change the taste of everything. Now I'll start creaming the butter. So to cream butter essentially means that you want to break it down and make it fluffy. So, and to that we'll add our sugars. That's the brown sugar first, and the white sugar. And then you cream it until the sugar and the butter come together and end up looking pale and fluffy. Now it's important that when you are mixing, you have to make sure that you stop at intervals to scrape down the sides of your mixer. So I'm going to do that now, and then use a spatula to get it down the paddle and then scrape the sides. That way you make sure that everything is evenly mixed. Now, at this point, I'm going to add the eggs. So make sure that you reduce your speed to low, or else it's going to splash all over you. And then this is at the point where you add your mashed sweet potato. So that's the end of our wet ingredients. When you're baking, you typically see your ingredients listed as wet and dry. And so our wet ingredients are butter and eggs and the mashed potato. Now we're going to add the dry ingredients. So to the flour, I'm going to add the spices: cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and some ginger powder. And then I'm also going to add baking powder and baking soda. Baking powder is a raising agent, so it will make your cake puff up. And then baking soda is a leavening agent. It neutralizes acidity in batters. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit. Again, I don't want this to splash all over me. And then I'm going to add the dry ingredients. I already have my oven preheating at 350 degrees or gas mark 3, so that you can just transfer it into your baking pan and not have to wait. So immediately you start mixing your batter, you should get your oven going. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes or so in order for your oven to come up to the right temperature. So I can increase the speed now. Nothing is going to splash except that flour that I poured on there. But again, this is not perfection. This is real life, happens in the kitchen. The batter is done, and I'm going to use my hand and a spatula to mix the rest of it, just to make sure that it's well incorporated. So take that down. All right, and then I'm going to mix that properly and then transfer it into a baking pan. Scoop your batter into your prepared pan. I want to talk a little bit about the baking pans here. There are different kinds of baking pans, but I find that silicone ones that are made of very durable rubber are my favorites. Okay, let me not lie. They're the favorite when I'm doing shoots, because once you add a little bit of butter, they almost always come out. The cakes almost always come out. I can't tell you the number of times I've tried to be fancy with my metal baking pans, and then when it's time for the money shot, which is bringing the cake out of the pan, it doesn't come out. So I'm going to gently put my batter into the pan. You can double this recipe. So if you want a bigger cake, double it. Now you need to shake your pan just to try and get the batter as evenly spread as possible. When it's baking, it will spread out on its own, but it's always good to get it going. And then by hitting your baking pan, whether you're using a silicone one or a metal one, it helps to get the bubbles out. And getting the bubbles out is good so that you don't have unnecessary air pockets when you cut your cake open, because that means that you just have divots. It doesn't look very, very nice. Okay, so I'll tidy up my pan. It's going to go into the oven, 350 degrees, gas mark 3 for, we'll start checking at the 25-minute mark. It's not a very large cake. And then after that, we're going to make a glaze, which goes over the cake, which adds extra oomph. So into the oven this goes. So while our cake is in the oven, I'm going to make a citrus glaze that's going to be poured all over the pound cake. And that's just going to add an additional layer of sweetness and the citrus is going to cut the sweetness as well. So in this bowl, I have confectioner's sugar or icing sugar. And then in this bowl, I have orange juice and lemon juice. So I'm going to measure out tablespoons. 1, that works. And it's really very simple. I really like simple recipes that give big results. And simply whisk the icing sugar and the lemon juice together. Make sure that when you're using your confectioner's sugar, you make sure that you sieve it so that you don't have any lumps in it. And you can see it's incorporated perfectly. You have a gorgeous smelling glaze, and once the cake is out, while it's still warm, we're going to pour the glaze all over it. So see you when the cake comes out of the oven. Out of the oven, I'm going to turn it over onto our cake plate and pour the glaze over it. So fingers crossed in 1, 2. Please use oven gloves. Don't be like me. There we go. So pretty. Nice and simple. And that's the advantage of using, a shaped pan. So sweet potato pound cake, you can see it has a lot of spring back. So that means it's nice and fluffy. Taking our glaze and money shots, and then just pour your lemony glaze over the cake. There we go. This is what we would call in the food world the money shot. I think it looks really pretty. So a sweet potato pound cake with a mixed citrus glaze. I'm going to give this a taste for quality control. sweet potato adds some fluffiness to the cake. It's not too dense, it's not too sweet, so the glaze is definitely necessary. And then those warm spices, the cinnamon and the ginger, the nutmeg and the cloves, just give you this comforting feeling. Bottom line, this cake is great and you guys need to try it. So I hope that this particular class has not only taught you some basics and something interesting, but you've gotten a little bit more comfortable with baking as a whole. See you next time.